All right, so I would first I'll start by apologizing for the abrupt end of yesterday's session. Um, I tried to, try to get back on with my office PC, but I realized, there are things on there that I wouldn't want to share as part of Moban's boot camp. So would hopefully moving forward, it's because I think I've not restarted that PC in a while. And the videos from the last, I think last week Sunday and then yesterday has been shared, uh, and hopefully we won't have any disruption in our sessions again. All right, welcome once again, everyone, to today's session. It's a new week. Happy Sunday to us all. Trust the day has been good. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen back. Shift to share. uh, all right, so when you see my screen, please do let me know. Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we can see as well.
okay, thank you. Uh, so feedback is I appreciate feedback a lot. So I know that I'm not talking to robots. Um, Again, welcome to today's session, and I've changed the title of our Linux session. Is not Linux Ninja again because attaining Linux Ninja in 3, 4 sessions is basically impossible. I don't like to use the word impossible, but don't like to deceive myself also. So we'll be learning Linux for DevOps. I know there are some of us that are hoping to not get to DevOps, but use it for their data analytical, parts. But yeah, yeah, whatever it is that you learn here would work perfectly for, data analysis. Again, the goal is to be uh, comfortable using the terminal as much as possible. All right. So today um, this is what we're supposed to cover for today. We're taking a step back, learning some essential commands, review some commands that are very essential that you should be second nature to you. You should know that these commands are will help you navigate around the file system. And then, I think it was Sylvia that talked about, asked the question yesterday about the file system. And so we would try to understand the layout of and the architecture of the Linux file system. And then we'll see how to view content of files, how to view application logs, because you'll be working with log files a lot. In fact, uh, these application log files are things that you will be managing from time to time, whether system log files or application log files. Yeah, so we'll be looking how you can view and work your way around to understanding how these are structured, and then we'll move to managing files and directory. Most of the things, basic things that, again, like I said, we're taking a step back. I was going to have us walk through package management and the likes, but I don't think that. I think it's safe to again saying that we have people that don't have um, you know tech background. I want us to try to take things as slow as possible, even though you guys have those videos, and I will keep referencing those videos because it's very, very important. All of the basic things have been, you know, touched on. Each time I've seen that video over and over again, and each time I watch it, I'll be like, oh wow, this is so. In fact, I don't even see reasons why we should have this Linux session because that probably has covered everything that we would be talking about. in here again. This is more of a review session. But before we jump into this, I would want us to quickly rush through the things that we should have covered yesterday before that session stopped. I think that's what we'll jump into. All right. I have my terminal up, basically where we stopped from yesterday. Uh, Try to get this Zoom thing out of the way because it can be frustrating. Yes, please rest Zoom. All right, so yesterday I think we stopped at switching to another user account, and how helpful it is. And I like that. That was what Sylvia actually, wanted to show us before, I start sharing screen. It means she's up to speed. And I hope the rest of us also are finding time to practice these things because, again, if you don't actually do them, it looks like, okay, yes, maybe it looks simple, basic, but it's when you do it that you run into issues. And it's when you do it that these commands, because there are tons of commands, trust me. And then you don't want to only have to run back to your notes or to the videos each time you want to maybe have maybe a test to take or want to, you know, uh, uh, do something, it should be second nature. Should be able to log into um, a Linux machine and then you're able to run commands without even having to look at books because it'll just be a kind of like reflex action. Yeah. So we can switch users. We as a means of recap to see the list of users that we have. We talked about the um, password file. There is also a handy command. It's more like yes, for use instead of having to use cards. We'll talk about what cat actually does. Basically, just print out the content of a file instead of using cat and then having to navigate to Etsy and then password. Like I said, and you would see in IT generally, there's no just one way to achieving um, a goal. There are 10 different ways to solving a challenge, a problem, a task. Yeah, so same way you can use that. So it's like programming also. Say you want to write an algorithm. Bear with me you know for this analogy that I'm about to use. So you want to write an algorithm or you want to create an API. You know, you would understand most of these things pretty soon. Like I said, in IT, in tech, we like to use terminologies. Terminologies is how we actually um, understand ourselves. Using the right terminology is actually very, very important. If you're talking to a colleague, if you so Sylvia now told she said she was trying to type a what's that word she used instead of command. She said code. There are two different things. It can be confusing if you don't use them properly. Yeah. So if you want to run or create an algorithm, there are 10 different ways. If, say, you want to um, write an algorithm to sort, a string of letters, maybe alphabetically or whatever, you can write algorithms 10 different algorithms. I'll do the same thing, albeit efficiency is one of the key things that you always want to consider, when you are working, when you're trying to accomplish a task, even though you have 10 different ways of solving that problem, but which of them is more efficient, which of them would, get you to that goal faster without, having uh, to stress you. I'm a very lazy person, so I always like to find quick ways to solving problems. So the same way you can, use cart and then, type Etsy password and all of those things to do this to get the list of users on your machine. You also still have a handy command. It's called get ent, and then the name of password of the file that you want to use. Basically, the same thing using cat, but get end, you use it to display the content of database, well, files that are system files, kind of. You can't use get end to say uh, view the content of a file that you created, say the Sylvia user now created a file, can use getEnd, but you use it to list the content of system files that contain, database of some sort. You can use it also. We've not talked about groups and all of those, but you can also use it to view the content of the groups directory. Yeah. So groups is what we were supposed to jump into yesterday. Again, if I'm moving too fast, if I'm, you know, not making too much sense to you, please interject and call me back, and then I'll try to, if you need me to explain whatever it is that I talked about, please to call me back. Yeah. All right. So like I said, we're supposed to jump into managing groups yesterday. Again, I will not dwell on too much on these things because we're still going to look at it when we get to cloud computing. Even user management, yes, is something that um, you'll be doing over and over again, in different regard, whether it is on managing users in Linux or in AWS or in some repository, remote repository. Yeah. So we understand how to create, manage, and switch between user accounts. Now we need to understand how to manage groups as well. The concept of groups in Linux, is not very different from, other platforms, like I said, and pretty much serves the exact same purpose. That's why I said I'm not dwell too much on it. And with groups, we can um, basically efficiently control um, the user's access to resource or a group of users now, if you have it on your server, on your machine, by assigning a group to a resource, whether a file, a directory, or whatever, you can allow and disallow access to users by simply adding or removing them from that group. So the way this works in Linux is that, every file or directory. So I'll be using files, directories interchangeably. Even there are two different things. Like I said, everything in Linux is seen as a file, whether it's a directory also, or it's seen as a file. Yeah. Um, um, so every file or directory now, has both a user and a group that takes ownership of it. You know, this is kind of contrary to, platforms such as Windows. I know most of us are coming from Windows. In Windows, we can have multiple groups assigned to a single resource. For those that have used Windows, um, deeply, you can actually assign multiple groups to one file. Yeah. But with Linux, it's a one-to-one kind of ownership, just one user and just one group is assigned to each file, or directory. Yeah. Um, so we can let's list the contents of this directory. We are in the home directory of this particular user, so I can list the content using ls-l. Um, so we have a file here called named.conf, and we see that okay, um, this is an output from a directory. We see here that Ubuntu owns this file and the group Ubuntu also. We learned yesterday that creation of a user, um, there are three things that actually happen when we create a user. I don't know, is there anybody that kind of remembers three things that happens when you create a user? Is anybody? I know I shared the video late. Maybe we've not reviewed it, so I'm giving an excuse for you. But is there anybody that maybe took notes yesterday, or probably practice? Three things happen when you create a user. using the okay, let me say using the add user command, you know, those verbose that you get, you can see the three things that happen. Anybody? Blessing, you're unmuted. Should I just answer my question? Nobody. Okay. I have to go to chat to get it. Oh wow. Maybe check the sound, what you're connected as in the microphone. Check which speaker you're using or which microphone that you have you're connected to. Okay. All right. So three things that happen when you create a user. One, a group with that username is created. The home directory with the same username is created, and the contents of the scale directory is copied to the home directory of that user. So this is kind of customary. Yeah. So and so when you create a file also using any user now, whatever user you're logged in, when you create a file, the three things you see, the owner of that file would be that particular user that you're logged in as, and then a group is also the group uh, owner, the group that owns or that has access to that file also is, assigned to that that file. We'll still talk about all of this later when we talk about permissions and all of those things. Uh, and so just keep in mind now that one user and one group are assigned to every file or every directory. This is a file now. If we're a directory, say we go to the root directory and we do an LL. So we see here that root is the owner of everything that you have inside of this, root directory. I think that's very logical. Yeah, so root owns this, and it's the root group also that owns that has access to this. So while each file or directory can have one group assignment, any user account can be a member of any number of groups. So there is a command that we can use. Let me clear my screen. So if I just type in, oh, sorry, groups rather. Um, this particular Ubuntu user uh, belongs to multiple groups. It belongs to the Ubuntu group. It belongs to the ADM group, CD-ROM group, sudo group, deep group, and LXD group. So the user um, can be part of multiple groups, basically. Yeah, we can find out what groups the user belongs to using the groups command. Um, and if we want to say specify for a particular um, user to see what group a particular user actually belongs to. I can do groups. I think I have the Moyo uh, group on this. Then see Moyo belongs to the Moyo group, and that's because it gets created, and also the users group. Okay. Um, okay. I think I already talked about command to see which groups exist on your machine. Like I said, you can use the cat command, cat, etc, and then um, group, see group file here to see all of the groups that you have again. But the last three is Ubuntu, Sylvia. These are the ones that we want to be particular concerned about. The rest of them are um, from the system generated users that own this. And it's again quite similar to the Etsy password file that we covered, yesterday. Uh, Again, the columns in here, we only have 4 columns in here. The first column basically um, have the name of the group. No surprise there. The second, we're able to store a password for the group with the X, so it can be encrypted and then stored in the um, what's that password file again? We talked about yesterday. Uh, and then the third column we have here is the group ID. Um, Usually groups, I don't think you actually need to put password. Well, it's not often used, you know. There's actually a security risk to do so. So usually do not assign passwords to group, but you can if you want to. Uh, and in group ID, which is similar in concept to user ID, that we discussed yesterday. There's a last column in the air. There are 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 4. Uh, the last columns basically is a list of the users uh, that is a member of this group. So if let's see, okay, yes, for users now, this users group, we can see that we have Sylvia and Moyo as users here. So as many members as you have in a group is you have a comma separated list of each of those users as part of this. All right. I think okay. Let's creating a new group on your system is easy to do, and uh, so it's basically we use groups for categorizing users and what they are able to do. You know, for example, you can create an we use an accounting group now for accountants or an admin group, for those in, say, the IT department or sales group for, the sales guys. So we use the group add. Let me clear this and then we use the group add command to create new group. But because it's an administrative command, group add is an administrative command, so we'll be using sudo, then group add. Let's just create a admins group, and we do not get any feedback back. So it means things have been is good. So if I cut the group command now, I see here that we have um, the admins group. I can also create a group for, say, sales, oops, sales, and it's very, very straightforward. So again, and removing a group is just as easy as that also. You have the um, group del, group delete, um, to remove, so I want to remove the admins group. If I do a cut of the group, I see that the admin group is gone. You can go ahead and maybe add it back. Yeah, I will be clearing my screen. So next, let's take a look at another command, the user mod command. Basically, we use this command to actually associate users with the group. Um, Even it does more than that, actually. It's the user mod command is more or less like a Swiss Army knife. There are several things you can actually do with the command. You can use it to add a user to a group. It's just using it to add user to group is just one of its possibility. You can use it to modify um, you know, details of the user we wanted to add. But we'll be using it to say add users to a group. Say I want to add Sylvia to the admins group now. So I do a sudo again. Most of the commands that we use in managing users and you know managing users, basically they are administrative commands, and so you need to use sudo every time you want to do that. So user mode is that command that you use in um, doing that. You'll be using user mode a lot, especially if you're managing users. Then you have switches, different switches, switch A, G. Um, I can add multiple switches like this, or I could as well, do this. But again, I am lazy and shortcut is my thing. Anything that would make me hit my um, keyboard less, I'll take. I'll talk about what each of these options do. There are tons of options if we check the um, user mode help page. We see we have quite a number of options. The A is for append, and then the capital G is new list of supplementary groups. We have G first use group as the primary group. Again, be sure to um, use this if you don't know the right options to use for whatever command that you want to run. Thank God for generative AI now. You can input your commands there and to give you. And we also have the man page if you want to read more detailed description of a command. You can use the man page. You read what that command does, and it's quite, can be overwhelming. Uh, you know, but you can't run away from reading documentations. You will be reading documentations a lot, so I think it's better to the idea to start getting used to it from the terminal using the man pages and then the help flag. All right, we want to add Sylvia to the admins group. Command again is sudo user mod flag small a and capital G. Um, so let me just basically explain this, even though as so the A option here, it basically means append and append or add this user to whatever group that we have. Let me complete this command so that then the group that we want to add the user to, and then the user that we want to add. So Sylvia is that user. Again, what this does is saying you're using two options at the same time. A is for append, and then the G, capital G here means we would like to modify the secondary group membership of this particular user. Um, Basically saying, don't take away the primary user, any group that this user belongs to, just, keep the user in that group and then just add this extra group to that user. If you go ahead and use a small g, try it out, you see, and then run. So do a groups Sylvia. See now that Sylvia belongs to the admin groups, or if we do a cat group, we see here that the admins groups that we created, Sylvia is a part of this. If you go ahead and maybe run this same command and use uh, a small g, again, try it out, and whatever it is you get, come and tell us in the next session. Um, okay, so moving on, we can also remove a user um, from a group. Okay, before we jump into that, I think let's just use the user mod command for one. I mentioned that the user mod command is more of a knife. Um, and if you read the man page, you'll see all of the things that you can actually do with it. So one of the things that you'll be using it for, maybe again, is changing user's credentials. Say you want to change a user's home directory, for instance, now, say one of your users has undergone a name change, and so you'd like to both change their username as well as move their previous home directory, and all of the files to a new one. So we'll use the user mod command to actually accomplish this. Again, sudo um, user mod, say we want to switch Moyo now, whoever Moyo is changing his name to say Chidima. So we can go ahead and do the user mod uh, flag D. Again, the options that you have available is these are the things that you use. I remember when we use the uh, user add command, when we had to specify the home directory of the user that we're about to create, we use that flag D for the user command. So this here we specify the home directory of um, that we want to change to. I said we want to change Moyo to Chidema, and then the user now that we want to change, say Moyo as the user want to change. Then we use the flag M to say go ahead and change the Moyo's user's home directory to Chidema. All right, so that command actually works, no error. If we go to the home directory now, we would have checked the home directory before we see here now that we have the Moyo user, but his home directory is now called Chidema. We can do a get end password to see this change. This is the Moyo directory, Moyo user rather, and even though his name is still Moyo here, but his home directory has been changed to /home/Chidema, and this username again is still Moyo. All right, now to change, say the username to Chidema, again, the user mod command is what we use, and we use the flag L to do that, and then the name of we want to change Chidema to change to Chidema, the username. Is it the other way around? I think this is correct. All right, so if I do a get ends, I see here now that this user has been changed. All right, so you guys can go ahead and see how you can actually you use the same user mod, but we have different flags that you use to change all of the details that you have in here, even the bash the terminal, you know, uh, that the user default terminal the user has. All right, moving on. Please, if you guys have any question, if I'm moving too fast, please call me back. All right. So say we want to remove a user from a group, there's a command that we use for that. It's the G password command. So I think we use I think this G password also is used for multiple things. So we can use it to both remove and add a user to group. Like I said, there are multiple ways to accomplishing the same thing. So G as WD, and then we use the flag, and then the user that we want to remove. We added Sylvia to the admins group earlier, so Sylvia has offended the admin, and then so the admin wants to remove him from their group. So Sylvia from the group that we want to remove her from, removing user Sylvia from group admin is not a member of admin anymore. All right, so if we do groups, Sylvia, so Sylvia is still part of admin's group in here. That's strange. Sudo Why is he still in my command model? Doji password -d Sylvia. Oh, I think that group is called admins, not admin. So there was a typo in my command. So removing user from Sylvia from admin. Get end group. See here that Sylvia has been removed from that group. Again, I think this same gets G password can also be used to place in place of user mode to add a user to a group. So I can say, okay, yes, Sylvia's appeased the admin, and so we can add her back to the admin group. So G password. A is the flag that we use to append or add um, Sylvia back to the admins group. Again, all of this, managing groups, becoming an efficient uh, system administrator, you would need to familiarize yourself with all of this commands that we've been running since yesterday, managing resources on your server, better. You use groups in place, to manage, especially when you have multiple users that you're managing, and then you have to assign kind of a collective permission to them. You use groups to manage all of this uh, resources and um, users. All right. I think
Can
Chidima.
I ask a question? So is this the back end or what? I'm confused.
No, this is your machine. This is what you will be working with. So, most of us, we are used to the GUI. So everything that you can do from your, say, Windows machine now, you want to, if you've ever seen you, I think even in your Windows 10, most enterprise um, servers usually we have a Windows Server operating system where you use in managing multiple users for an organization. So, but it's GUI based. You just go to uh, you know click of a button to create users. So the same thing you would do from the GUI is basically what we're doing, using commands now. And this is because most of the servers that's houses applications that's are serving different internet users actually run on Linux machine. There are so many advantages to why applications are running on Linux. There are enterprise applications that run on Windows. I don't doubt that, but very few, maybe very, very minute fraction. But for most of the applications that we have running, they run on Windows Server and Linux machines. And then this is how you interact with, those applications. If you need to deploy those applications, and that's again, like I said, we are learning Linux for doing DevOps, and one of the job description of the DevOps engineers is to make sure that applications that your developers or your uh, clients have come to your organization. Okay, please, I want you to develop an ERP system for my organization. Okay, your developers have written all of the code, and then you need to deploy, and make it available for all of the users of the organization. Your application will be running in a Linux machine, so you need to know how to play around the Linux machine. That's why we are doing this. Are we still together, Chidua?
Yes, I'm still
Mm,
a little bit confused, but maybe I'll get a hang of it moving forward.
mm. Okay. Were you not in our first introductory session when we set up our workstation?
I was actually. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I was. I'll get a
Mm,
hang of it.
mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. By the time we run one or two, three sessions, yeah, you understand. All right. So there are so many things that we can actually do in managing users. Organizations have um, password policies for users and all of those things. Again, these are core, um, server management task. I won't want to bore us with, in fact, it would just bring up so many confusion because we'd have to um, go into some very interesting files and all of those things here. So setting password policies, these are core administrative access work. Uh, moving on. So there is, okay, before we move out of this, there is a particular, so the users that we've created now, we have been talking about the sudo command, even though I talked about it, that, we use it to give wings, superpower to whatever user that we have. The two users that we have created so far, they're just basic users. Even the um, admins group. So because we called a group admins does not mean it has the power to, um, you know, um, do administrative things until you enable this. So to make a user um, part of the default um, administrator that come group administrative group that comes with your Linux machine, there is a particular group that user must be a part of is the sudo group. And this any user that is part of this group actually again basically has access to everything. With the sudo command, you can run administrative tasks. Anything that the root user can do, the um, root user can also do. For Ubuntu, the group the pseudo group is by default the administrative group. So if I do let's get and groups. Let's group. So we have a pseudo group. This group is any user that you add to this group basically can use the sudo command. So if I switch to say let's switch sudo su uh, so I'm switched to Chidima user now, and I want to say run an administrative command. Say I want to try to use the sudo command to uh, add the user. So I want to add a new user called Moyo. It's going to ask for a password for Chidima, yes. To see for the first time you try to, as a new user, try to use the sudo command, it will request for your password to be, certified that yes, you're actually the user that is trying to initiate that command. And then maybe subsequently you would have cached that password, and then you don't have to add the password every time that you want to run, just like the Ubuntu user, even though the Ubuntu user does not have a password, but uh, it will run this. So this after running this, is saying Chidima is not in the sudo as file. Basically, what it's saying is, she does not have the permission to use the sudo command. Yeah. So one, or you can either add the user Chidima to the sudo group, or you can actually, there's a file, a sudo as file. Now, that's what this is saying that you can use to add in that user to the sudo as file. Again, the easiest way is to add the user because if we look at the sudo as file now, yeah, there are so many things in there that you don't want to ever tamper with, except you are very, very comfortable with, you know, tracking, touching, um, uh, administrative configuration files. Yeah, we have a command that actually you can use in editing this. How do we add Chidima to the administrative to the sudo as group? We talked about this, the same user mod command, or you use the G password command to actually do that. Or you can use there's a vi sudo command that you can run. Okay, she does not have the permission to actually use this, so I have to exit this user and then vi sudo Ubuntu should have the permission to run this. Eh, do I need sudo to run this? Sudo. Okay, yeah. So it's a configuration file. Quite a number of things in here. Yeah, so this allowing members of group sudo to execute any command. Quite a number of configuration that can be done in this. I won't have you tamper with that, else you're going to break so many things. But you can, again, just add the user to the sudo group. And in other Linux distribution, the name of the group that you need to add users to probably would be different. I know for CentOS, even Amazon Linux, the group there is called Will. Yeah. So if you have launched uh, an Amazon Linux, instead of the sudo group, you use the Wills group. Yeah. Again, the command to actually do this, you can use user mode if you like to type a lot. A G, the name of the group that you want to add a user to, and I can add Chidima to that group. With that, Chidima has the power to use sudo whenever she likes. All right. Moving on. I want to talk about setting permissions on files and directories. We all the user management we've done so far, will come together in here. We have learned how to add manage user accounts, secure them. Well, the resources that these users have access to, we've not talked about this. So I'll just give a brief overview of how permissions work in an Ubuntu server, and then just provide a few examples in customizing them. Please give me a minute, guys. Sorry about that. That's good. Okay, so no, so by now I'm sure we know how to list the content of um, a directory using the oops, can't I type again by ls-l command. We only have one file in here, so uh, no worries. So when it comes to viewing permissions, um, if I'd used just the ls command without the flag L, with this I just get the list of the file without um, the listing all of the permissions of this particular file or object if you have it. So there are several fields, there are several information, with just this one line, um, broken down into columns if you have it. So I think there are different columns here. So this is the first column, next column, columns like that. So this first column is basically what we'll cover in detail, for now. We'll talk about other things also. So this is the permission string. This first column is the permission string for this particular object. And second column, and this is for is a link column. We'll talk about. I don't think we need to worry ourselves with links for now. But if time permits us, we'll talk about what links do, for files, no. So the third column here is the user that owns this file, is the third column, user that owns this file. And the fourth one is the group that owns the file. Next is the size. This is in bytes of this particular file. And then the fifth is the last day the file was actually modified. This was modified March 22nd at 5:53 p.m. GMT, I think. And then the sixth column is, the name of the file. Let's keep in mind that depending on how your shell is configured, this output may actually may look different. You can actually track how you want this to be. The different fields may be in different places. Okay, well, we really do not have to concern ourselves. By the time you guys use and are very familiar with the terminal, you can actually, again, Linux is open source, so you can do and undo, you can place things however you like, if you understand how to do it. So it's the permission strings that we want to look at for now, and then we'll talk about the other parts in a bit. And maybe, okay, yes, the owning user and then the owning group also to look at those also. So we can see here that this file we have is owned by this Ubuntu user. And sorry, like I said, this permission string can look confusing at first. I think there's a way that I can write. Okay, yes, I can annotate in here. That's good. So this permission string, if you've not worked with Linux before, it might actually look strange, but it's actually quite, easy when we break them down. And I'll try as much as possible to see if I can break this down, more. So each permission string here, it can be broken down into, I think, 4 groups. First, see the first one we have. Okay, can draw with this. Can you guys see my pen and what I'm about to draw here?
Yes, we
So,
can see your pen.
okay, good. So we have first the object type. Please bear with my writing with the, this is actually very, very, so we have the object type, we have user, group, and then world, all the orders, uh, world orders. We use this interchangeably. Okay, so here the first, I'm just going to use this as an example. First one is dash. For this, we have read, write, and dash. Next one, we have read, write, and dash. And then the last one, we have read, dash, dash for this particular file. So I've broken down each of the 3 example strings we have into 4 uh, groups, basically, splitting them, the first character and then again every third um, uh, uh, session of it. So the first session of a permission string is just 1 character. This is just a character. For our example here, it's just the hyphen that we have. And this refers to what type of objects you have in here. If it's, I we mentioned that in Linux, everything seen as an object, but we can have three different mm, files can be represented by three different um, objects. So we can either have a directory, a file, or a link. In our case, um, the dash represents a file. If the object were a directory, the first character would be a D. You'd have D in here. Um, and um, instead of the dash that we have. So when you list a file, if you have a dash, you know that it's a file. And if you see a D there, you know that it is a directory, and then you can know how to um, work on that particular object appropriately. If the object were a link, you'd see a lowercase l in there. Uh, Lowercase l, which is, I don't know why it's this. Oh, all right, so that's for the um, first character that we have, this first character. And then for the next three characters, that's the next section, that's the second column of each object. We have three characters, R, W, and then the hyphen. We'll see what this means shortly. This refers to the permissions that apply to the user that owns the file. That's for these first three things that we have in here, first three octets. Um, you know, the second session of this. That's let's say the third part of this. Basically, this is saying the permission that this um, the whatever it is that you see here has over this file. This read, write, and usually we have three permissions. You have read, write, and execute. But when you see a dash, it means that that's third um, um, permission is not accessible. It's not, the user does not have that permission, and this is because this particular file is not an executable file. That's why it's actually blank here. It's not a script. It's not something that can be executed. It's just a file, and so for a file, you only need to be able to read and write to a file. And then the next one, the next three that we have is also the same permission. That's the read, write, and then the dash. This applies to this group part, So whatever um, string or name you see here would be, correspond to a group that you have on the machine. And any user that is part of that group would have whatever permission that you see here or access you see here on this particular um, file. And then the last three is for others, any other person, any other user now that is, resides on this machine. Whatever permission you have on these last three is basically what those users now be able to do. Anyone else again than the owning user and group, whatever it is that they can do on the system. This again would take a bit of getting used to. I can individually, R stands for read. Sylvia is about to ask a question. Go ahead, please, Sylvia.
I mean, I love the way you just explain this thing. Like I quite
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. All right. I hope the rest of us also actually understands this explanation. All right. I'll take that as a yes. All right. So, like I said, individually, R stands for read, W for write, and X is execute, even though we don't have execute here. We'll see it maybe later when we start writing scripts. All right. So, again, so if a permission is not set, it simply will be an hyphen. Yeah. Uh, and so there are different when you have directories and then when you have files, the um, way read write works is quite um, different. Yeah, so for files, um, when you have a read, it means the file can be read. You can cut the content of the file, you can print it to the screen, and then for R, it means you can edit. For file now, it means you can edit um, the file. The file can be written to, basically. And then for X on files, it means that file can be executed as a program. But for directories, it's quite different. When you have an R permission on the directory, it means the content of that directory can be viewed. So when I did an ls-hell now, um, Ubuntu can actually list the content of this directory because it has permission to do so. Yeah, and so it can list in the content of the directory. For directories, the right means the content of the directory can be altered. You can move a file, you can rename, a file inside of a directory, and then the X means the user or the group can change, you can go into that directory. So you can have an X. So it's not execute now. It means you can go into the directory, you can actually cd into that directory, basically. That's what it means.
Sorry, sorry for taking you back. So I just want to know, so what's the difference between the file and the directory? Is it that the directory is found in the file?
The
Sorry,
file, so
like I
so
just want
directory is like a folder. Does that make sense? It's a folder where you put files in.
okay.
Mm, I think
So
that's the
directory now. Okay, so directory is found in a folder. That's it.
no. So you can use directory and folders interchangeably in our Windows context now. We call it um, uh, um, folders, but in Linux is a directory. And
Okay,
then,
so they are like the same thing. Folder and directory are the same thing. Like yeah, they can be used
yes, you can use them
interchangeably.
interchangeably, yes. But in Linux, you probably want to refer it to as directories.
Okay.
Mm.
Just want to make sure. So then file, what about file?
Files are files now, your text file, your configuration files, and the likes. So you have a Windows a document now. That's a file. You have
Okay, so
um
what is the file now? Linux now. What is the file? Is the file inside the directory?
yes, you have files inside directories. Right now we are in, let me close out on this. Right now we are do a pwd. We are inside of this Ubuntu directory. In fact, I think the next thing we'll talk about is the file system hierarchy. So we are in this Ubuntu directory, and then inside this Ubuntu directory, we have a file called named.conf.
Okay, 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 okay. Thank you very much. That's all the
All right.
information.
How can I clear this? I'll clear this. Clear. All right. So now that we understand how to read permissions on files and directories, that's great. Well, how do we alter them? Say, um, as I mentioned earlier, let me create okay, let's just create a file now. Say, as this user, I wanted to create a file and I mistakenly used sudo to create a file. Talk about what touch actually does later. Say, let me just do a budget.txt. One thing you should also know in Linux is that file extensions is actually not a thing. So you only use extension to, for readability or for you to understand, okay, this is the kind of file that this is. The Linux kernel does not actually do anything with the extension. It actually sees everything as, one big text. Because we are coming from a GUI place, we usually, feel more comfortable adding extensions to files that we create. All right. So right now I have created this budget.txt, but as this Ubuntu user, this means I don't have access to this file, even though I created it, I own it, and I should have access to it. How do I alter, um, you know, how do I get access to this particular file because I want to edit it? If I try to, say, let me use a text editor to try to edit it, budget.txt now. I can, list it, but if you look down here, it says read only. And do you know why it's saying read only? From what we just explained earlier, from using this our permission string.
Yes, because we have permission to read it, not to write.
Yes. So what part of this user now, what part of this permission is it using, in this Ubuntu user?
Using the arrow and the
Yeah, I
iPhone.
know it's using the R. We explained this is for the user rights, the group permission, and then the others. Which of them is it using? Okay,
So it's using the others.
exactly. That's exactly because the root is both the owner and also the root is the group in which should have access to this. So because this Ubuntu falls as a user orders the world now. So that's why it only has read permission. So how can we make this Ubuntu user access or have access to this file? So it's a confidential file. So we can change this permission, the permission on this object. We can use there's a command we can actually use to run this, and you'll be using this command quite a lot. We use it to alter the permissions of files and directories in a few different ways. First, we can simply remove maybe say let's add write access for others, in this. So I can do is an administrative command. So I would need to use sudo chmod is that command. Um, there are actually different ways we can actually do this, but we'll talk about two. There is the octal equivalent. So again, multiple ways of actually achieving the same thing. So I want to add the rights. So for others, I say O, and then I want to do a plus right for what file? Budget.txt. So what this is saying is for others, if you were the user, this would be U. If you were for group, this would be G. And then what you want to do, if you want to add the permission, use a plus. If you want to take away the permission, you use a subtraction or an hyphen. Yeah, you should have it. All right, so this, we should see that we have a write permission now added to this particular file for others. So if I do vi budget.txt, oops. I see here that now I can actually write to this file. It's not read only again. All right. But this is not good because this is a confidential file. So and we don't want just anybody on the machine to have access to this. So we can still go ahead and use, like I said, if you want to take away that permission from this. So we can just do an O. Let's go back to the status quo and have that listed. Let me just do an LSL so it doesn't list unnecessary things. So now we have taken that write permission out of this. And the reason why I'm using sudo for this chmod command is because this particular file is owned by root. If I'm going to edit or change permission on this, because it's owned by Ubuntu, I can go ahead and do a chmod 0 all others plus write unnamed.conf. This will work fine, and that's because Ubuntu owns this file, so it can actually, grant permission to whoever it is or whoever it likes to. All right. I hope you guys get the idea behind this. We are both it's basically removing bits from this particular string of permission. And like I said, you can actually add multiple permissions, say, uh, let's see, what do we have here? I'm so used to using Ella. Okay. So I want to remove read and write from that's named.conf. So I can do a chmod for group, for others rather. Why is it others that I can do remove, read and write. Oops, I did not add. You guys are not working with me. You should have told me that. What am I trying to do without? Yeah, so again, you can mix and match. However, for groups also, you can add, so this is one way of actually doing this. There is actually another way, which is more, so this is very, very straightforward, yeah, to add permissions to group, but there is also the octal point values that you use to manage and modify permissions, which is more, I want to say more professional, but again, whichever of these ways actually suits you. Because I like one way does not mean that's the best way. So we'll talk about this other way also of doing this. Again, this is more common. Maybe that's why I'm saying it's more professional. It's a more common method of altering permissions. I like to think of it as a scoring system, in that you add um, points, to permissions. Yeah. So I think it's much easier to make it, um, to have each type of access has its own value. So basically, we talked about, I will need my annotation again for this. So we talked about read, write, and execute. See writing. Okay. So for each of these permissions now, an octal value is kind of associated with it. For read, the octal value associated with read is 4, for write 2, and then for execute 1. With this style, there are only a few possibilities of numbers you can actually achieve when you combine these values. So when you take all of this, each can only be used once. So the values, I think the options we can have from this is 0. Say you can use only one of these once. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 by adding all of them together. Or can we go beyond this with 4, 2, and 1? I don't think so. These numbers, so we can use different combinations, of this 4, 2, and 1 to get any of these values. Obviously, 0 means you're not adding. 0 is there because you don't want to add any of this, basically. So so if you want to say give an object write access but not read for the most part, it means you probably just use 2 and on like that. We still use the chmod command to actually accomplish this. Say, let me clear this out. Just come back to the files that we have here. So for this particular name.com file now, say we want to, again, just give read permission to this. So I can do a chmod. We do this. So it takes for the octal way of adding permission, you represent each of this now again, just like we explained earlier. So you say for this particular set of permission, we write and execute. So for this, it means we want read and write. Read and write is 5. Oh, sorry, 6 other. Read is 4, write is 2. That is 6. So the first octal value we have here is 6. And then the next one we have read write also. It means we have 6 also. And then for the last one, read write execute. Obviously, what we have currently is 660, currently for this. So if you want to alter this, say you want to add just read for others now, it means you turn 0 to 4, and then the name of the file that you want to actually do. And if we use, see that read as be turned on in here. Same way, if you want to add execute to this, what you do is just run the same command. Instead of 6, execute having point of 1. So we add 4, 2, and 1. So we have 7 in here. And then keep. So we've added execute with this. So you can mix and match how to use this different. So understanding the points that is added to, that is given to read, write, execute will actually help you, manage using this octal value of adding permissions better. Again, this requires some using it over and over, playing around with it, and yeah, it just becomes second nature. Hopefully, you guys get this idea. Do you guys have any question?
I don't have an idea about the numbers though. It seems complicated, but I believe by the time I go through the video again, I'll get better understanding. But I'm still trying to understand the concepts behind the using of.
So you can just pick whatever. There are 2 options. I've given you 2 options in which you can manage those permissions. So whatever works for you, it's fine. If you were going to do this on a directory, say, let's go back one. Okay, let's go to the home directory. So let's go for directories. If you're going to change access for directories, if you run the chmod command on just a directory, it would not affect all of the files that you have in here. You need to use the switch R command option rather. This makes changes recursively, meaning that you not only make change to the directory, but also all the files and directories underneath it in one shot. Yeah, so just it will save you time, but it can also cause trouble. So if you have a mix of directories and files underneath that directory, yeah, changing permission on, you probably want to be careful using the R option in there. Yeah. We can also change, we have been talking about just, changing permissions. We can also change ownership of a file. So I think, yeah, so I mentioned earlier that this budget was an oversight to have created this using sudo. So now we want to change um, the ownership of this file or directory now. Whatever it is you can do for a file, you can also do for directory when it comes to ownership of files and all. It's often the case. Yeah, the command we use to do this is chon. Yeah. Uh, so I want to change the ownership of this directory, just the ownership now, just this particular one. So I can say Ubuntu, come and take one of your file and then project. And again, the reason why I'm using sudo is because the original owner is not Ubuntu, so I need to, use veto power to do that. So I can do this. I see here now that the owner of this file is now Ubuntu, but the group is still Ubuntu. Again, if you like to change the group assignment also, you can use the same command, albeit you need to use a colon and then the name of the group that you want to change or if you want to change the ownership of the group also. And if we do an L, this has changed the group ownership also. Okay. If you were for a group, for the directory, you just use the R flag also. I think it's worth knowing that we also have a change group command. Besides change using the change ownership, this again is intuitive, but we have the change group command also, which again just directly changes the group ownership of the file. So earlier, instead of having to use the colon, and I just wanted to change the group, so I can do a change grp, change group, yes, and use change group back to root for projects.txt. Okay, changing group permission not permitted. You will need to be is an elevated, an administrative command. So use sudo to do that, and then this will change just the group. Linux administration is actually interesting, especially when it comes to managing users and permissions, and it's something you find yourself doing quite a lot. New users will join your organizations while others will leave, and so there's something that it will become something ingrained in your mental tool set. And like I said, it's not just on the Linux machine now. You find yourself having to manage users and in different tools or applications that you'll be using as part of your tool in your work toolkit now. Even if you are the only person using your server now, you would find yourself having to manage permissions for applications as well. This is very, very common. You install applications and then you have to manage permissions. And then when we talk about processes also, um, uh, when you need to run processes because they can't function if you don't have access to the required resources, you will see that you would be managing permissions quite a lot. Yeah. All right. So usually we take 10, 15 minutes economic break. We have been talking a lot, so I suggest we take 10 minutes and then get back and jump into what we originally had planned for today. I hope that's fine, guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. That works for me.
All right. So you can take a walk, go drink coconut water, whatever. All right. What have I done? Hi guys. All right. Welcome back. All right. So for the next half of today's session, um, so we want to again, like I said earlier, take a step back. Um, I felt we should cover a few foundational things again. Um, and this is because I don't think you guys have seen those videos, and I want us to just do a review of things that you should have. I'm assuming that you already know. So we'll look at some essential commands that you should if they wake you from, sleep, you should be able to and ask you a question. Okay, how do I do this in Linux? You should be able to, even without opening your eyes, just call out those commands. These are the things that we want to look at, and then while we're looking at that, we'll talk about the file system. Uh, I'm going to bring back my terminal, and again, this is so that we build a solid competence, on the command line. It's very, very essential, if you're going to be either a system administrator or a DevOps engineer, it's one of your superpowers here. Um, not superpowers that give you the ability to um, leap tall buildings, though. You know, well, definitely enable you to execute terminal command like ninjas here. First, we'll talk about moving from one place to another within um, the Linux file system. Again, if you know these things already, bear with me. It's just a review. Again, uh, if you have questions also, please shoot. Um, moving within the file system, specifically, um, sorry, excuse me. We're basically going to learn to navigate from one directory to another. We'll just talk about a few commands and then just move on. I used this command earlier for you to be able to navigate the file system. You need to know where you are. So know exactly where you're working from currently because it's not the GUI kind where you can see from your taskbar or whatever where you are exactly. So we have the print working directory, PWD is the print working directory. Basically tells you what parts you are in the file system. So I'll be using the Linux file system a lot during this session because trying to run around the file system. Yeah, so again, shows you where exactly you currently are in the file system. Um, and we are in the home directory of this particular user. And if this is where all the files for this particular account would reside by default. Sure, you can always create files anywhere you like, even outside of um, the home directory if you have permission to do so, or you can use sudo to actually do that. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. So as we would learn, soon, that the file system, the Linux file system, has a um, designated place for just about everything. And the better you stick to following these um, conventions, the easier it will be for you to manage a file system. That's why I said just because you can create files anywhere because you have you can use sudo does not mean you should actually um, do it. Usually for every user, you want to keep things, in your home directory, own it, you control it, it's your home on the server. Uh, mm. All right, so moving on. So to change our current working directory and navigate to another, we can use the cd command along with the path that we want to go to. So cd, say, um, let's see. Uh, so we've gone over. I know. Okay, I think yesterday we briefly looked at um, the directory layout, but we didn't really touch on all of the different parts just yet. That stems from that root directory. So I just randomly picked this Etsy directory, and I chose it because random, because you'll be working with this Etsy directory a lot. I mentioned yesterday that it contains all of the most of the configuration files for packages that are pre-installed on your machine and that you subsequently install. So when you're looking for configuration files for packages, um, this is the directory you want to come to look for it. And this is how Linux is kind of structured. So you put things in the appropriate place. So when you're looking for, you know, anything, you know exactly where to look. And so the forward slash at the beginning, basically it's the beginning of the file system, like we said, and the Etsy directory, you know. Uh, Again, the CD is what we are particular about is basically it stands for change directory. It's how you move um, from one working directory to another, navigating around. Uh, and we can use this to move back and forth. Say I want to go back to the root directory, I can do this. And if I do an ls, I see that I have all of this, and you can actually go as deep as you want. So I can go to home, I can go Ubuntu. If I have more directories in here, I can keep going inside on and on like that. So you can nest this command as you want. And then you can also go back also the same way, use the double dot to go back one step. So I'm currently in the Ubuntu directory. If I want to go back to the home directory, I do a cd dot dot. It just take me to the home directory. But if I want to go back to the root directory, I put a forward slash and another dot dot, and then this will take me to the home directory. And again, wonderful things you can do with the cd command, moving both back and forth to different um, directories. Uh, and there are shortcuts that you can use depending on what directory you want to move to. I said it yesterday, if you want to go to the home directory of the user that you're logged in, you can basically just use a CD and this will take you to the home directory. And when you see a tilde in here, you know that you're in the home directory. And there is still a more it's okay, let's gonna go back one more. See, you can still use CD and the tilde. Again, this is you adding extra keystroke, which doesn't actually make sense with just the CD. You can use CD and the tilde, and I think you can also use uh, CD and a, a this would also take you to so same goal, but different ways of doing this. All right. So I think also the CD backslash um, dash doesn't actually um, have anything to do with your home directory specifically. It's just a trick to return you to whatever directory you were the most recent. Say let me correct that. Say I was in my root directory now. Okay, and I went into home directory. If I do a cd dot, sorry, this will take me back to the root directory that I was before the last change directory command that's actually used. Just able to correct that. Yeah. Right, so another essential command. So we're just touching on essential commands, print working directory, change directory. Another essential command that's again I've been using over and over since we started this session is the ls command. Basically lists the content of whatever current directory that you are in. So we see that we have quite a number of files in here. And so we can actually list the content of files. We don't have to actually be inside of that directory to list the content. Your ls command can actually, you can pass in the paths to it, an absolute path. So say I want to list the content of etc directory. So I can do this, and this would list all of the contents of this etc directory, even though I am in the root directory. Again, with the ls, you have multiple flags that you can use. I have the long list flag. This would list all of this in a more readable way. And if you want to see all of the options that you have available to you, use the help. You have quite a lot of them in here. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I've been, instead of using ls-l and all of this, Ubuntu actually has what we call an alias. Alias has been kind of assigned to, an alias is basically like let's say a shortcut command now that you can actually use. So in Ubuntu, I think in most Debian distros, you have the ll command. This basically is an alias basically of ls hyphen. Instead of having to type all of this, you can just use ls, ll rather. And again, like I said, aliases are like shortcuts that you have. If you type alias in here to list all of the aliases that you have, on your system currently. So yes, this is the ll rather, and this is the command that actually runs when you run ls. Then you can actually create also your own alias using the alias command. So I can run an alias for, let's see what command now. Say I want to create an alias for print working directory. This is not intuitive, but I just wanted to drive home how you can create aliases. So I can create an alias for print working directory. I don't like print working directory. I like to type my name in place of print working directory. So I can do this equals, oops, print working directory. So instead of typing print working directory, I can do moyo, and that is how you create a temporary alias. And if you run alias again, this would, you see that your alias has been created. So when you have long commands that you use over and over again, you probably want to create aliases for them to make life easy for you. So say there are tons of commands that are long. Let's say, so the first thing when you log into your machine, your Ubuntu machine, you always want to run an update, especially when you need to install packages and what have you. So you have this long sudo apt. We'll talk about all of this, what this means. Yeah. Apps, updates, and sudo apt upgrade flag y. So instead of having to type all of this, over and over again, I could create an alias and call it, whatever. Um, alias update, maybe not use a keyword, and then every time I want to run this command, uh, I can go ahead and just use this 5-letter word in place of all of this long command, which actually makes sense. Yes, makes sense. Yeah. And if you create aliases using this method, by the time you reboot your machine, this tool that we created using this alias command would actually um, kind of go away. But if you want to make it permanent, there is a file that you um, need to edit to make this permanent. I'll let you guys take that home as um, a research, find out if you want to make an alias permanent. There's a file, you just go and add this line to that file. And so that way you would set that alias permanently. That's probably where, if you have quite a number of aliases that you want to add to your machine. I worked with this developer. Oh my God. The guy has I think a 100-liner of aliases that he uses for different things, Git, for all of his developmental work. He works like a professional. It was so very, very interesting. Yeah. All he does is because he runs Linux on his local machine. So and he's always reformatting the machine. I don't know why. It takes, so whenever I update it, it just takes that text file and then pastes it inside of the file that you guys would go and look for, on your Linux machine, and then starts to run all sorts of installation because he already has, aliases for all of the different tools that he needs to, have his machine back up, all of its developmental tools, the servers that he needs, all of the dependencies and what have you. Yeah. So go ahead and find out how to do this. All right. I hope you guys are still with me and I'm not confusing you more.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So another command that we would uh, look at is, I think we talked about this yesterday. The RM command is, yes, I think we talked about this when we discussed manually removing the home directory of a user that was removed from the system. So you're probably aware of the command already. And I told you, I think I typed in a command. I told you with that command, with the typo in that command, you can actually destroy your Ubuntu machines. The RM command is a command that you want to use very carefully. It's a potentially dangerous command. You could use it to, again, accidentally remove everything. Remove something that you should not remove. That so I don't think I want to talk about this RM command again. Uh, Again, use it very, very carefully. You can use it to remove files. So, uh, okay. Say I want to remove this budget.txt file now. So I can do remove budget.txt. That is gone. If you were a directory, you add the switch R command. And this is where things get, kind of dangerous. If you add the R, it means it will recursively delete everything in that, you know, uh, directory. You can also use the first command. Again, you have your help. Oops, I just hit now. Why am I still typing things wrongly? Yeah, so we have either the small r or the capital R for recursive. And if you want it to explain everything that has been done, you use the V for verbose. And then if you want to force it to ignore any prompt or whatever, yeah. All right. So another foundational command that's good to know is the touch command. Use touch actually serves two purposes. First, if you have the permission to do so in your current working directory, touch command will create an empty file if it does not already exist. So let's do a test file dot txt. This will create that file. To be using that now since we've talked about it. It will create a file, and we see that the file is literally empty. It's 0 kilobytes. There's nothing in it. And we can also use touch to update the modification time of a file or directory if it already exists. Say our name.conf now was the last modification time was, on March 22nd. If I do a touch named conf, nothing happens. But if I do an LL, I see here that, the modification time has changed to March 23rd, even though I didn't do anything inside of it. I still don't grab that, but you have that. Uh, all right. So we have learned to create files. Now, when it comes to viewing the content of a file, um, mm, okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. I want us to talk about the Linux file system layout. Uh, as I mentioned earlier, every directory in Linux has a designated purpose. Uh, Again, it's not a hard rule that you have to follow. It's more of a strong recommendation if you have it for where certain things are supposed to go. There are some of us that are we like to pride in our organizational skills here. So we like things to be, put in the right place again, so that it's much easier for us to locate things when we um, are looking for them. You can certainly go against this recommendation, but ultimately, um, you want to have full control of your machine. You want to be able to get things, from the right place. It's it's an it's a habit you want to um, get into, putting files in strange locations. You may, especially when you're working with um, other people. Yeah, you guys want to have a standard, and this Linux has kind of made provision for that, in terms of where things should go, so we'll just go over this common directories, and talk about their purposes. Uh, the file system can actually, at first, be somewhat confusing, especially because, you're just seeing text now. Um, and Mm, but we'll try as much as possible to um, just talk about the basic ones, the ones that she should, take note of. It can be a real rabbit hole. Yeah. And it even gets more complicated, especially if you have to even install Linux on a physical machine. It gets really, really complicated because you have to choose the appropriate formatting the volume, and then choosing the right file system. File system in that use case is going to be different from, a file system. That's the directory structure that we are actually concerned about. Yeah. So um, I mentioned yesterday that in Linux, Ubuntu specifically now, the Debian family uses all of the Linux distribution. They use the Linux kernel, and the different utilities that it has, you know, to kind of manage how things are arranged. Uh, in computer science, when you talk about operating systems, there are roles that operating system actually plays, in terms of managing the hardware, managing processes, managing resources, and all of those things. So the kernel is kind of where all of this management actually stems from. And so Linux, kind of arranged as puts that kernel in like a central location. Yeah. So he said the file system in Linux begins with the forward slash. When you see the forward slash, so it's considered the beginning of the file system. I think I have sorry, let me see. I have a screenshot that I took earlier. Uh, uh, okay. Let me just share my full desktop. Yeah. All right. So I have this. I don't know if this is clear enough. I'm just going to still bring up my terminal and then this up. So this is the root directory. This is the beginning of the file system, and then the directories and subdirectories actually branch out from this root directory. For example, now we've talked about the home directory over and over again. Exists at the root level of the file system. Um, um, and as we see, most of the directories in here begin with a forward slash and then, the different directories in there. Yeah, so we can now have home, the home directory exists at the root level, and then J or the Ubuntu or any other user now that you have uh, now would now be inside of this home directory. Uh, it may look confusing, but becomes logical once you become accustomed to it. Yeah. If you're familiar with Windows, you can technically think of this root directory as the C drive. Mm. So it's a bit more complex than that, but if we forgo some of the quirks, that's comparison actually works. So let's go back to this. So everything we will be doing is actually stemming from this home directory. And if we do an LL, we see all of these different files. So it has a tree-like structure, as we can see from, this is a tree-like um, main branch and extends outwards directories branching out from one another. You see the user directory has now been inside, even though we have been in here, but it has its own set of subdirectories. Even var also has its own set of directories also. So that's why it's usually called the file system hierarchy standard FHS It's basically a set of guidelines that defines how the directory structure is laid out, um, defining that's the name of the directory, where they are located, and what they are for, different distributions, sometimes very subtle differences, on this standard. It's a standard for a reason. Most distributions, actually, especially, that's why I said Linux, you have two main family, the Debian and the Red Hat. So the Debian, if you look at the standard, that file hierarchy standard for all of the different distributions that we have for the Debian family, you see that they follow the same directory structure. And then the ones for the Red Hat Enterprise, they also have similar, structure, depending. So why is this important? You would ask, like I said, each directory generally has a purpose. That's why we're actually talking about this. Because when we start doing some, I want to say advanced things now, start installing application, you know, running things inside of our machine, you'd need to put them in the right place. There are debates about the default layers from time to time, but uh, changes are being made every now and then. But in regard to Linux, file system layout tends to change very less frequently. You know, we going through all of the difference. We have quite a number of files in here, and I don't want to overwhelm us. Even myself, I don't think I've had reasons to use or work with every directory that we have in here. But again, I'll just point out, excuse me, the ones that will need to just take note of, you know. So again, the roots where we are is the beginning of the file system, every directory we have in here underneath it. I'll just point out a few ones. The etc directory, this is where system-wide application configuration. So when you hear configuration, the first thing in Linux, the first directory that should come to mind is the etc directory. And yeah, home, basically, I think we already know what home does, users, home directories. Again, this is what they are, designed for. This is why they are there, for proper management standard. We have slash roots also, but yeah. We have the media directory, media. This is for removable media such as flash drives, but again, we are using a cloud. Um, we are trying to move to the cloud, so we won't have any reason to actually attach any removable media to our machine. The MNT. So these is more for volumes that are intended to stay mounted for a while. So say you want to, when we get to cloud computing, this will make more sense. You want to add extra storage to our machines. Our machine, we have EBS volumes now. You can mount those volumes on top of this, inside of this directory again, so that you know that all of the extra volumes that is attached to my machine. This is where they've been mounted onto. OPT. So we have some software packages, that are installed inside of this particular directory. When you guys get to DevOps 2, when you start installing Tomcat as a web server, actually gets installed inside of this. So, and you have other software also packages that you installed here. It's not very, very common. It's because there's also okay, yeah, Etsy actually houses most of those configuration, but OPT also at times houses some very maybe old or I don't know, legacy applications that prefer to, have theirs in here. So the bin directory is actually one directory also. This bin is where all of the users binary, so all of the commands, that we've talked about, the ls, plain working directory, and all of those things, their binaries are actually sitting inside of this bin directory. So if I come inside of bin and do ll, we have quite a number of files in here. All of these are the different commands that you have in here that you can use on your Ubuntu or your Linux. This is where they have kind of, see, touch, but I say instantiated now. This is where their definition is actually. So when you run commands, they're actually programs, mini programs now that um, talk to the kernel to achieve something. Yeah, so all of the things, if you open it up, and open it up, you see a bunch of C++, um, you know, um, code in there, that talks directly to the kernel. So all of this is where all of their binaries are being stored inside of this bin directory. You never would have to go in there except, say, you want to change how a certain command actually works, and then you must understand C++ if you're going to actually do this. All right, moving on to other proc. So this is a virtual file system. It's an OS level component, kind of. So if your Linux machine runs out of memory and then it needs to kind of um, create a virtual file system to kind of store some things that may not. So again, our cloud providers have made some of these um, directories redundant in that they handle, if you had a physical Ubuntu machine installed now, all of these things will be proper, essential for you to understand um, what they do. We also have the user, let's see, hmm, this user directory also houses user commands also, that you, same thing that this does. User also does it also. Um, lib just is a library of commands also. So uh, var also is something you will be doing. You'll be using quite a lot. So log files for applications that you have installed on your machine. Applications generate logs depending as they perform different tasks and what have you. They generate logs. So if you need to see, say you have an application running and then it's not doing what it should do, and then you want to see why that is, the first place you want to look at is var. Also, most system logs actually, are kind of logged in this directory. So if we go into var now, you see quite a number of files in here. For now, we don't have very much applications running. If we had installed quite some applications now, we'll see them in here, and then go into logs. And these basically are just default logs. That's syslog, authentication logs. If we tell this, we'll talk about some commands that you can use to. I mentioned what I think I would want us to, spend some time, because the ability to manage, logs is one of the core skills that you want to kind of have in your toolkit. The directory that I would want us to even be more concerned about is the etc directory. It's like I said, is the directory that holds configuration files of different packages, applications that you have running, and you will be um, working on configurations a lot. You'll be tweaking configuration files over and over again, system configuration files, application configuration files, and what have you. I mentioned the sudo as file earlier. This is it in here. Go in there, do what you need to do. Um, Are there questions around this file system? Again, it can get a bit tricky, but the more you use, the more you'd have reasons to play around these different directories. And the ones very few of them you would use from time to time. The rest of them, they are more useful if you have the physical, machine in front of you, and then you need to manage quite a number of things. Uh, okay, so let's move on. I would want us to end this class in the next 4 minutes. So we need to carry over some other things. So I'll just talk about one more command and then we'll call it night. All right, so we have, as we've seen, we have many directories and files, and we need to learn how to read and manipulate them again to round out to know how we can print content of a file to the screen. I talked about the cat command. The cat command, I don't know if we have any file in here. Okay, don't have anything in text file. Yeah, so we can cat say named conf. Okay, so we have content in there. This will um, just print out everything that you have in there to the screen. If there's nothing in there, it will not print anything, obviously. Our test file contains nothing, so it's not going to print anything because it's empty. We have some system files like I said, everything is a file. So if you want to get information about what system, what kind of machine operating system you have, there is a particular file. Just like we have been using cat a lot for our Etsy and the password file and the group file. Yeah. So this is the configuration, your OS release file. This contains information about the distribution of Linux that you're using. Is Ubuntu 24.0 long-term support, the name Ubuntu as a version ID, and like you can even see what family that it is from. Even the code name for 24.0 is called Noble. So, and this particular configuration will actually exist on the different distribution. That's because, again, it helps you print out information about the distribution of Linux that is currently installed. So if you were to launch, say, an Amazon Linux now, what you get is going to be quite different from that. You can also view same information with this. There's a different command you can actually use to do that. LSB underscore release. I think you have flag A for that. And this just gives you, what I say, an abbreviated version of what you have in the OS release files. All right. I think can we call it a night for today, guys? I'll resume from here next weekend.
Thank you.
Are there any questions, feedback? Okay. I'll charge you guys to practice. It's very, very important. Um, these commands again, just play around, write commands, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes in a day. Just get comfortable with the terminal, move around it, see how to change to different directories. This is the time you can actually break things. Um, Try to edit some configuration files, see, what would be the results, be inquisitive, basically, now that you have access to this. Yeah. All right, guys, thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you guys the weekend.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Have a lovely week.
Bye.